Hi, everybody. Julianna Forlano here for Act Now. Thank you for watching our show today. So, Build Back Better got passed. We're going to look at what's in the damn bill, as Bernie Sanders strongly suggested we do while it was getting passed. We're going to look at what got in, what was kicked out. I'd like to make the argument that most of the things that got kept are very corporate friendly, even if they sound like they're a giveaway to, families and regular human beings. We're going to be doing that with JOCELYN McCurdy-Keatts, a DC correspondent of act.tv. And guess what else? We have a fun piece of activist artwork created by Chanel Powell of Arizona to show you, as the people of that state work to stop Senator Sinema from carrying out the corporate will instead of the people's will. And you may have heard already that while the activists were doing that awesome thing, another congressperson from Arizona, Paul Gossard, has released a video depicting a violent attack against progressive candidates or progressive Democrats and, blood all over immigrants, etc. That's going to require some talking through. We're also going to cover a couple other things that happened in the news. So stay with us. First things first, the headlines. Hello, I'm Julianna Forlano, and now coming up are the headlines. Joining me today to go through what is in the Build Back Better bill now that it is finally passed is JOCELYN McCurdy-Keatts, ACT TV's DC correspondent, and I would say, segment producer of the show now, since you're here every week, which is great.
Hello. Hi, everybody. How are you doing this beautiful Tuesday afternoon?
Well, I'm happy to have you here. Let's talk about what stayed in the bill. I have a theory that most of the things that stayed in are things that are friendly for corporations, even though on the outside they seem like progressive, the progressive victories, which they are, but at the same time. Anyway, you start.
Well, so there is a lot. The goal for progressives and Nancy Pelosi was to pass the BIF, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and Build Back Better at the same time. That didn't happen. After the Virginia and New Jersey elections, a lot of Democrats were kind of scared into, okay, let's just pass something. So Friday night at I think around midnight, the BIF passed. And now we're headed towards getting the care part of the infrastructure package passed by Thanksgiving. That's the ideal. And Speaker Pelosi seems confident that people are going to be able to work together and come to something that will work for everybody with childcare and elder care and all those other big ticket items that have been spoken of so excitedly over the past few months.
Wait, so what is already passed?
So what's already passed is the concrete infrastructure. So some, high billion-dollar investments into green energy, roads, bridges, all that kind of good stuff. And it's a win, honestly, for us. I mean, we ended up getting 19 Republican votes on the BIF, and it is like these are the biggest progressive spending bills to ever pass through Congress.
I have to say, this made me very happy. I mean, all of this talk has been of cinema and mansion and mansion and cinema and cinema and mansions mansion. They're going to stop everything. They're going to slow everything down. And then you get that I had heard zero that Republicans would be voting for this, that it would be zero Republicans. And we absolutely needed these two nutty Congress people who are not, I don't know how they call themselves Democrats at all, but anyway, they're just placeholders for progress. What's the deal with that? Why did the media not say, well, but they also have 19, possibly 17? They could have discussed that, but then I guess no one would be excited and there'd be no cortisol release during the show. How would you sell product?
Well, I think the thing about reconciliation that's different than another bill passing through Congress is with reconciliation, you just need a simple majority, which means it's filibuster proof. We don't need the super majority you need for a lot of other legislation, like voting rights legislation, for example. Yeah. So I think the focus on Manchin and Sinema was more of just like, if Democrats hold the line on this, we would be in a much stronger bargaining position. But ultimately, I mean, especially with the BIF versus the Build Back Better, we did have some cross-partisan work on this, which is, and we're living in the most partisan time in American legislative history. So that's exciting. It is a win.
It is definitely a win. Yes. I don't want to take away from the win. Do you think that there will be as many or less or more crossover votes from the Republican Party when it comes to passing things like, childcare, family leave, that kind of stuff?
I think that is definitely more of a fight, which is kind of why we're in this having to split them up more. I think what Democrats wanted was for both to pass, because both involve a lot of investing in green technology. And Biden wanted to carry that victory with him when he went to Europe for the climate summit. That obviously did not happen. But it looks like we might actually, have everything we want before the holiday season. Everything we want. Well, you know what I mean? A lot of what we want.
A lot of what we want.
And that's a lot of what we want. Victory, including, I can't believe I forgot to mention this, investing in broadband in a more, I mean, I don't know if
that'll be great for this show, because sometimes JOCELYN travels to the Netherlands and not reach her. She went, where did you go? Michigan?
Northern Michigan. Yeah. Northern Michigan. Key on the northern, because I'm pretty sure in Detroit
they've got internet. Yeah.
No.
You never know.
But right. I mean, but access to fast internet without having to pay exorbitant fees absolutely is a public good, especially as we pivot more and more to remote work and remote schooling. People not having access to the internet puts them at a serious disadvantage, both economically and just interpersonally. I mean, more and more, especially last year in the pandemic, people were seeing their doctors online. Like, it's unconscionable that in order to get fast internet in some parts of America, you have to pay like $200 a month.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. I don't think my life would be, it would be not possible if there wasn't, internet access. But of course, I'm paying for it myself. It's not like it's not like broadband for everybody over here in the wilds where I live. Which I would be happy for. That would be good. I watched John Oliver's this past week, and he talked about one of the main reasons that we can't, have more of a green energy economy is because of the transmission wires from where they can put the windmills and solar panels to the places where one would need the energy and the electricity are just not, they don't have the capacity to carry the amount of energy and electricity that is needed. So rebuilding these transmission wires, the big electrical wires you see everywhere, is going to be a major, not problem, but it's a major project that we have to take on if we really want to transition to green energy. Is there anything in the bill that addresses this issue?
Muting and unmuting my mic.
Oh yeah, I know. I heard some feedback there, but we'll see.
This is totally my fault. I'm in like a very echoey space. But yeah, so there is going to be, again, like,
you're literally coming to us from the echo chamber.
Literally, a literal echo chamber. The goal of the BIF is to bring America's hard infrastructure up to speed, and that fortunately means a lot of investing in tech. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because obviously passing through Congress doesn't necessarily mean things are funded yet. The Congressional Budget Office still has to do all that kind of thing, but it'll definitely be a longer process. And, I was reading like public intellectuals commentary on this stuff, and it's a lot of this will be in the implementation, because the reason this was an easier pass for Republicans is because the whole debate over this whole thing all year has been, what is infrastructure, and a very deep philosophical question that, what does it mean to invest in the public good? And obviously progressives were saying, well, okay, people can't go to work if they don't have childcare. people can't do their best if they're paying exorbitant hundreds of thousands of dollars into elder care. But, the Republicans are more like infrastructure is a bridge. And that's it.
Exactly. Because it's guys, or I'm sorry to bring gender into this, but it's like patriarchal, not just gender guys, but patriarchal thought processes. It's a thing. Child care is not a thing. We don't even think about it because that's not valued in our country. It just seems so old, a so old way of thinking.
Well, and I think that's absolutely correct, right? So, obviously everyone knows Congress is mostly millionaires, but that leads to a really horrifying situation where these people are entirely removed from how much care is costing your average American, your average middle class American, who probably makes too much money to receive, certain healthcare benefits, which is like, obviously, we're not saying take away benefits from working class Americans. That is not what we're saying. But then have to pay out hundreds and thousands every year to have someone take care of their kids, to a point where it frequently cancels out the point of going to work at all, which is not what we want.
Absolutely. So, give us a little more detail. What did we win in addition to what you said?
So let me pull up. Okay. So for the BIF, we have $110 billion in transportation projects. We have $1 billion in reconnected communities, which something that I really wasn't educated on before this bill is that there are a lot of communities, especially communities of color, which have been subject to serious devastation by highways running through them.
Oh my God, that's my family.
Yeah.
No, for real. I mean, and that was all of Brooklyn. I'm from Syracuse, New York. They take a highway and they run it through the working class neighborhood, regardless of race. But now it's kind of, it's falling more on black Americans.
Well, in the public health impacts of that, I mean, those communities end up devolving into cancer clusters pretty quickly, because you think about the carcinogens that are spewed on households every single day. If you have fuel emissions just being pumped into people's backyards, it's horrifying.
It really destroys the community because it doesn't allow foot traffic. It doesn't allow, and they do it by eminent domain too. So there's a lot of horror going on here that should not be going on. I remember when I studied a little bit of Robert Moses, who put the highway system together in New York City and down Long Island. He made the overpasses that you had to pass through in order to get out of the city to the beaches of Long Island. He made them too small for buses to fit through, so as to curtail the ability of people who had to take public transportation to get to the beach, to be able to, get to the beach. And it was done by design. It was on purpose.
It's disgusting. And it's something that, I think we've talked about this on this show. Environmental justice is something that doesn't get nearly enough attention, which fortunately does get some attention in this bill, because you ask most people what environmental justice is, and they'll say, well, it's a healthier environment. But no, environmental justice is in reference to the fact that different communities will feel the impacts of the climate crisis first. And the way we prevent that and the way we make things more equal is by making sure those communities are safe, that they receive the investments they need in health care, and again, not having, carcinogen plants built right next to where kids and families live. That we make sure that we are investing in disaster safe infrastructure, so communities like New Orleans aren't receiving just completely preventable disastrous effects every time there's a hurricane, because these natural disasters are going to get more and more frequent. And the point of the BIF is to be investing in climate proof technology. Obviously, the United Nations reported we're in a code red for humanity at this point, right? We can't stop this. But what we can do is invest in a public infrastructure which makes people safer. And we are going to be doing some of that. So that's good.
What do we have? We have a little bit of video here. Didn't we bring a little bit of video? JOCELYN, what do we have? Set us up.
So I think that this is where the video you're talking about is just looking at the Congress passing this late Friday night. It finally happened. No, it's
Oh,
not.
no, we don't have that one. Hold on. No, John Carl is in the background giving us the move on.
Wait, are we hearing from President Joe Biden? Is that what we're hearing?
Are we hearing from President Joe Biden? I think we are. Here he comes.
Be clear. We will pass this in the House and we'll pass it in the Senate. The Build Back Better Act will be a once-in-a-generation investment in our people, getting America back to work by reducing the cost of child care and elder care, and getting millions of women back in the job who have to stay home because they cannot afford the child care or the health care for their parents. Providing universal pre-K for every 3- and 4-year-old child in America, and increasing their academic achievement potential significantly. Making healthcare more affordable, lowering prescription drug costs. The tax cuts for working people and the middle class.
That's true. Is it me, or does that sound like we will pass this in the House? We will pass this in the Senate. We will not have this on a bus. We will not have this with our lunch. Like this. I'm reading too many children's books these days. I will not eat them in the house. I will not eat them with a mouse. The green eggs and ham business. But so he's still very hopeful about being. No, okay, well, you can come over. He still seems pretty hopeful about passing the rest of this stuff. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was something that I am perceiving. I mean, there have been a number of things cut out of, the next portion of this bill that he wants to pass before Thanksgiving. Some of the things that got cut out are, they wanted to do hearing, vision, and dental for the elder, or, for people on Medicare. Now they're just saying, fine, we'll just do the hearing. What? The husbands in the world are like, oh, finally, I don't have to hear anything anymore. Now, now they're going to fix it. Just kidding. But one of the things that they are cutting out is like the paid family leave. And that seems, but they're leaving in the childcare, the childcare. And I just thought, gee, that's a real corporate friendly cut. Paid family leave is something that companies aren't going to love. They don't want to lose their workers. But free pre-K for families is great because it frees people up to go to work. You know what I mean? It frees people up to go get that job, to get, keep showing up at the Amazon warehouse, et cetera, et cetera. What are your thoughts about that perception?
Well, it's really important to note that researchers have done, like psychological researchers, educational researchers have studied universal pre-K for a while and found that it's a great equalizing force for children to receive educational care and just supervision at such an early plastic stage in their development. And it also obviously is wonderful for parents. We have more single mothers in the world right now than ever before. And what does that say, right? Like if you don't have a marital partner, you're either relying on family or you're having to pay for childcare, something that is like, again, egregiously outsized expensive, especially if you want to get something good. So a public availability for working parents and single parents is going to be a game changer.
Right. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying definitely keep that, but we should also keep, paid family leave.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to choose. I'm just saying the choice that was made was something that was a corporate friendly choice.
Right. No, and I mean, I think you're absolutely right about that. The attitude towards family leave in America is shocking to me. The first thing I wanted to be when I was younger was a midwife, and it was incredibly strange to be studying midwifery and learning about the effects of birth on the body and the family and how much women go through postpartum. And then you combine that with the American ethos of, oh, the minute you're not pregnant, it looks like you're fit to work again. And what that does to the mother and the child, which are so early in their stage of connecting and bonding, it's really disturbing.
It's very disturbing, and it causes children to have lowered outcomes, lowered IQ, lowered health, etc. And when people achieve lower, all of society loses out on that. So I wish I wish all of America would look at this in a holistic way. Like, we need to support our children. These are our American children, not your children versus my children.
Well, and also, okay, I mean, the thing that I think we talk a lot about, and I just, you look around us, right? And everybody it's very difficult to find people in America who aren't traumatized by the way things are going. We have a
Oh,
system.
yes.
What?
This is a perfect segue for our next segment. Keep going.
I mean, but seriously,
No,
I mean,
for
we
real.
have a system which forces parents to be in a constant state of overwork. And guess what? You know, the more overworked you are, the less available emotionally and just physically available you're going to be to your kids. One thing that really shocked me when I was getting my psychology degree is that the number one intervention that brings down domestic violence rates is financial subsidies. And people don't want to talk about that. They want to think that domestic violence is just like villainous.
Somebody's bad because they're mad.
Yeah, which like, of
Yeah.
course, sometimes it is that, and nobody is at all recusing anyone from responsibility. But they found that in communities where there were financial interventions for struggling families, domestic violence rates, both against spouses and children, dropped dramatically. Because at the end of the day, the number one thing you can do for families is make sure they're not in a constant state of anxiety and overwork.
What's interesting that you should bring that. It's not just overwork. Now we're all in a constant state of anxiety. I mean, as a mom, I was just talking about, we're going to talk about this next crazy thing that that happened in the world. The concert in Houston where there was a crowd crush. Did you hear about this, Jocelyn?
I actually did not.
Good. I want your fresh perspective. That's very good. So, a musician, Travis Scott, on Saturday, well, he said there were on Friday night, 8 people at least at this point died at the Astro World Music Festival in Houston, which is put together by musician Travis Scott. Tons of individuals, I don't know how many, were also injured, and we're talking bad crush injuries because they were trampled after a crowd surge at the festival, which the musician founded 3 years ago. The Houston mayor, who is Sylvester Turner, said that a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, 2 21-year-olds, 2 23-year-olds, a 27-year-old, and 1 person of unknown age died. And I'm back to what we were talking about terror. To me, this whole thing has to do with capitalism, making money. They cut corner. There were some safety concerns brought up at the beginning of the concert. Concert organizers did not heed the calls. I had some images of what happened, but I'm going to let you go and look that up yourself. We have maybe a still image, but there was tons of video because people all had their phones out at the concert. So there's lots of video of people being just crushed and unconscious people being lifted up over the crowd and help not being able to get to people. It's pretty disastrous. But the fact is that I have 2 lines of thought here, JOCELYN. One is that my first thing is like just feeling for the parents of those young people who have lost their child now due to the fact that someone wanted to cut corners and save money and not have security in place. And, I think that people and parents are living in a higher state of anxiety because of just generally the fact that we're living through the end of capitalism, the end stages of capitalism, where people are, there's no security at a concert where hundreds of thousands of people are going and crushing up against. There was just like people standing. There were no seats. JOCELYN, do you remember when, I don't want to age myself, but as a fan of the Dave Matthews Band, remember how you would, not you, but one, maybe me, for example, would like, go, you'd get a ticket, there'd be a seat for you in the stands.
Yeah.
And then you would get one person's ticket from the floor and make your way up to the floor. And if security was tight, you wouldn't be able to do it. But if it wasn't tight, you might be able to get closer to the front of the stage, etc. But everyone had like a chair. There was more of a crush, but not like there were no chairs and they just let in several 100,000 people. This just seems like you're taking your life in your hands and there's no security checks. And it's not just a concert. The concert makes the point for the fact that this cutting of corners in all areas causes parents and other people to just have this higher level of anxiety that just creates a worse world for everyone.
I mean, 100%, Juliana. I feel like I have to regulate myself sometimes because it makes me so frustrated when I speak to people of older generations who are done raising their children and don't have self-awareness about how stressful
You
and
mean boomers?
terrifying
Are you
it
talking
is
about
right now.
boomers? We're talking boomers, right?
I most certainly am. Yes. You know, I will spend time with boomer relatives, unfortunately, and these issues will come up, and it's be like,
But,
oh
JOCELYN,
well,
in this issue, it wasn't boomers. It was like, Travis Scott was part of the planning committee. He's not a
right.
boomer.
Well,
He's a
and
young
this is he's
musician.
a young rapper, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So, I
So
mean, it's part of the mindset of capitalism.
yeah, 100%. It's bizarre. It's like, so you're gonna have a slightly more profitable concert that results in murder. That can't be good for your brand, right?
Well, somebody's getting sued, but suing is not enough, to
No,
bring back.
especially if you're a parent who lost your 14-year-old child. I can't even imagine.
No, it's really sad. My heart goes out to these people, and it is terrifying to let your kid anywhere these days because it's very hard to trust when you deregulate everything and there are no rules for anything, including concert safety.
Well, and especially
it's very hard to trust in your society. I feel like this is part of watching society crumble.
no, 100%. And how vulnerable we as consumers of anything pretty much are right now, right? Whether it's the food we eat that may not necessarily be regulated the way it needs to be, or going to a concert, which should be a pretty I can't even imagine being anxious about a sibling or cousin going to a concert, right? So it's just a horrifying thing to hear.
And guess what it does? It sells more anxiety pills. Xanax.
Yes.
Xanax is making a bank with the fall of our civilization here. Anyway, you can follow the fall of our civilization right here on actTV. You're watching actTV right now. Okay, so any final thoughts on this? I mean, we could go for a while on this. I was going to play the video of what happened, and there are, as a former therapist, there's this idea of secondary traumatization where when you're talking to a traumatized person, you pick up the trauma yourself. And there were so many cameras and so much news on the scene that you really got these people who had been traumatized, who had seen, I saw an ER nurse talking about having seen someone have their head kicked in because they were being trampled. I think that one lived. I don't know. But I didn't want to secondarily traumatize you, our viewer, because we here at actTV try to navigate the fall of civilization while also not leaving you completely depressed at the end of the show, right?
Well, and it's really interesting, right? So I'm reading this book. This was New York Times bestseller last year.
Wait, show it in the camera.
Yeah. This book.
Yeah, you were going to send me one of those. We got to get the author on here. Get the author on.
Her point is, how to manage your anxiety, how to heal from your childhood. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking like, okay, these are all wonderful topics, but this Dr. LaPera has been criticized as problematic because her solutions are so individualistic. It's like, all right, I'm obviously all about individual therapy, but it's like you're saying, Julianna, secondhand trauma is a real thing. And if we're living in a situation where life is objectively traumatic for all of us, maybe we should be talking about the policy decisions which create this world. And yeah, sure, go to therapy, of course, by all means. But
you wouldn't need that much therapy if there was a social safety net where you knew that if something should befall you, and things befall every single person on this planet, that if something should befall you and when something befalls you, you will be held. That takes away the anxiety that underlies every American in this country. You literally step across the border into Canada and you feel like, and I know they're not perfect and they don't have everything and it's not heaven, but there's no guns in the street and they have healthcare.
You nailed it. Seriously, you nailed it. We need to get that on bumper stickers, Julianna.
Well, because the anxiety level is down, so people are working out of their rational minds. And I'm sorry, but when you work out of your rational mind, you don't buy as much stuff just out of a panic. You're not in this fight or flight limbic system state where, you know, you're trying to protect yourself, or you're trying to win, or you're trying to any of that. You're making rational decisions based on, you know, what's good for you. what
And this is where I do
your
think that the
values are.
self-help genre can do just as much harm as good, because if we're telling people that the solution to all the anxiety they feel is yoga, and then they're going to start to internalize this idea that it's somehow irrational to feel extremely anxious in a world where we're dealing with climate crisis, people getting trampled to death at concerts, a pandemic, you know, working longer hours for less pay. These are objectively traumatic phenomena on their own.
It's very
much less combined.
Our good friend Harriet Fraud, who's a psychotherapist and a second wave feminist she was at the front line of all of this in New York City. She has a podcast called "It's Not All in Your Head," and I think it's not all in your head. Yeah. And that's basically what she talks about. So I love having her on. We're going to have her on soon again.
Love
Maybe you could be
that.
here too. That would be awesome, JOCELYN.
That would make me very happy. Yes.
All right. We're going to transition now to our action rundown, because we have a little bit of spotlight to put on some interesting things that are happening in Arizona. JOCELYN's going to stay with us. I hope you'll stay with us too. You're watching Act Now on actTV. I love it. All right, this is Act Now. I'm Julianna Forlano. So check it out. Down in Arizona, some interesting things happened yesterday and today. We've got, well, first of all, the filibuster is basically standing in the way of voting rights and other critical issues. And Kyrsten Sinema, the senator there, she is choosing to keep the filibuster, and she's not choosing to protect the people. So a Phoenix-based activist and organizer made this political movie trailer. There's no movie. It's just a trailer, but it's cool as hell, called The Betrayal. It depicts how Senator Sinema has turned her back on African Americans, Latinos, indigenous communities, and the rest of us who like democracy. I'm going to play that for you in a minute, but they did have this get together where actTV was present to live stream it, and we got some clips for you. First of all, here is Pastor Warren Stewart from the African American Christian Clergy Coalition talking about Sinema and why we need to hold her accountable.
Filibuster was used a lot during the civil rights era by Southern Democrats and politicians who were against the civil rights acts. And so it has been used to keep back justice from people of color, from African Americans, brown, poor people, etc. It has a long history. And again, for Sinema to say that she supports John Lewis, she supports civil rights, and to hold on to such a relic is really contradictory to who she says she is. So perhaps we're seeing the real Sinema.
Perhaps we are. We also have a clip from Chanel Powell, the Phoenix-based activist who made this trailer we're coming out with in just a second. Here's Chanel.
Pro-filibuster is an abused tool, not a treasured inscription of the United States Constitution. The filibuster was weaponized by slaveholders, then segregationists, and now anti-democratic actors. The filibuster, in choosing to defend the filibuster over passing voting rights, Senator Kyrsten Sinema has proven to be a villain in her own story, rather than her own nightmare. A nightmare that we, the people of Arizona, have yet to wake up from. Senator Sinema turned her backs on us time and time again. She failed to show up to create a committee for the January 6th deadly white supremacist insurrection at our Capitol. She refused to eliminate the filibuster to help fight for over 400 suppression bills introduced across this country, which 4 passed here in the state of Arizona. She shamefully blocked the minimum wage increase. She presented obstacles to expanding healthcare and social services. Meanwhile, she has wrapped in corporate donations and entertained Republican leaders and refused to engage with us, her constituents. But all that has to stop us from all of that has not stopped us from turning around from our communities, because we know that our communities deserve better. We're here tonight celebrating the premiere of The Betrayal. To make it clear that when we show up for Senator Sinema, she has a duty to show up for us. Showing up means choosing our rights and our livelihood over that damn filibuster.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to show you the thing, but first I want to tell Giancarlo, who's in the background, to put up the lower third that talks about this particular action rundown, because it has the action that these folks. There you go. The action that these folks want you to take. You can text Cinema to the number right there, which I'm going to have to get my eyes checked because I can't read it from this distance. In order to do some work against her. You've been following this filibuster issue, JOCELYN. Before we watch the trailer, do you want to weigh in on do you want to give any thoughts about this fight?
Yeah, so I think the filibuster is one of those things that a lot of people may not understand, but are now too afraid to ask because it's so central to the
Yes.
media cycle. So to just recap, passing something with a simple majority means you just need more numbers of votes on one side than the other. But with a filibuster, you need a super majority, which is
Why was it originally put in?
It was originally created by Southern Democrats who wanted to protect slavery. They could sense the abolitionist movement gaining power, so they created the filibuster to essentially create such a situation where they would need such an irrationally high majority of votes that they would, again, protect the institution. And it worked for a time. It's something that was, again, the reason you hear the words leftover from the Jim Crow movement is because the filibuster was also used to protect racist legislation at a time when Americans were waking up to the evils of racism that continued to exist after Reconstruction. And
that is very interesting, JOCELYN, because especially now that, if I remember my history correctly, they had the filibuster, so they couldn't get rid of slavery in a peaceable way. So then they had to have a war. I hope we're not marching down the same, pathway right now.
A filibuster basically ensures that unless you have an overwhelming majority of senators united on something, you won't be able to enact legislation, which is not a democracy, right? No. Because if obviously no congressional body is going to agree on everything uniformly, that's literally why we have elections. That's why we have debate. And the reason abolishing it is so important is because we now have a situation where the government is growing further and further removed from the popular will of the people.
Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona is getting in the way of this. Are the other Democrats supporting it, or are they just kind of using her obstructionism to hide behind?
Well, there are a number of Democratic senators that are not necessarily in favor of removing the filibuster, but her and Senator Joe Manchin are definitely the most vocal and most obnoxious about it. Senator Joe Biden has come out against the filibuster because if we want to live in a democratic society, we need to be able to pass legislation. And a filibuster really just makes sure that that's not going to happen unless the legislation in question is so banal, it just won't happen.
Well, I remember, I think, who was it? Mitch McConnell or former President Donald Trump saying if the filibuster goes away, there'll never be another Republican in office because, and maybe even the centrist Democrats can be gotten rid of. Those will become the Republicans, and then the Republicans will be like that nutty guy screaming from the street who doesn't have a party. That would be all right.
Well, because they know look, everybody has these polling numbers. People are well aware that most of the American public wants investment in green energy, wants healthcare to change, wants drug prices to come down. They know that the only way to maintain their stronghold on political power is to cheat. And that's what the filibuster is. It's cheating.
Exactly. So the people in Arizona made this awesome movie trailer. It's making the rounds on the internet and it's getting attention. to the fact that they are organizing on the ground to fight against Senator Sinema's what they see as her betrayal. So let's take a look.
The dream always starts the same. I'm locked in a house. There's this woman. I can't see her face. She's yelling about someone not listening to her.
Who is the woman, Rosa?
The woman is me. I realize I'm not dreaming.
Who else is there?
The filibuster. Cinema. The filibuster. It all comes back to her. She's keeping us trapped. She's using this Jim Crow relic to hold us back.
It was the filibuster rule Cinema supports that killed the For the People Act.
To suppress the voting rights of black people.
To block a vote to create a 9/11 style commission to investigate the January 6th attack.
The filibuster.
She's enabling it all.
The filibuster.
How does that make you feel, Rosa?
Is Cinema, no.
Betrayed.
Awesome. And if you want to get involved in that campaign, you can text cinema, which is cinema like the theater, but with an S, to what is it? 89 something? I can't see it.
89799.
Thank you for those of you just listening in. 89799. I did it earlier. It was great. Okay, so in the same state, you've got, okay, so this is the evils of, this is like a passive evil, right? Kirsten Sinema. This is the evil on the Democratic side. Now we're going to show you a little bit of evil that happened in the very same state on the side. This was brought to my attention by, well, Twitter, but also by our producer, John Carlo. He's following things, and he explained exactly what's going on in this video. Do you know about this, JOCELYN? Okay, great. So I'm not even sure whether I should explain it first or just watch the thing first. Maybe we'll talk it through a little bit first. So there is a senator, Paul, what's his name? Gossard? Yeah, Paul Gossard from Arizona. He released a video depicting a violent attack of progressive Democrats. Also part of this video is shots of immigrants marching like at the border, like you would. It looked very, we're marching off to the gulags. We're marching off to the camps. And there's blood over those images of the immigrants. Really disgusting, very vile, very violent. He is the chairman of the Congressional Nuclear Caucus in the House of Representatives. His own brother calls into the Thom Hartmann program and says he's really mentally deranged for reals all the time, often. What kind of messaging is this coming out of the Republican Party? I mean, it seems like it's the same fascist propaganda that happened before World War II in Germany. And in fact, it is. Let's take a look at the video, JOCELYN, and then we can discuss. Who's this guy? That's him, right? You need John Carlo to jump in and yeah. He's like the big hero, this guy. Now look, immigrants, blood.
I believe these are images of ICE.
That's John Carlo, our producer.
This is incredibly disturbing.
Very. We haven't even gotten to anywhere yet. I mean, John Carlo, tell us what we're seeing.
So this is off a Japanese anime called Attack on Titan, and they superimposed AOC's face on the mutants, and now they're killing them. Yes, JOCELYN's face is correct. The anime also deals in a lot of kind of pro-military, a lot of fascist, anti-immigration imagery and propaganda. It's very, very strange that they did this.
Where did he put this video?
On Twitter. On his Twitter. And he was very excited about his team doing it. And then it even added the tweet, does anybody like anime? Anime, also, of course, being the Japanese animation medium. So
Now it went viral for obvious reasons, and the video went by so fast that it was really hard to pick up what was going on. But there's a still shot of Representative AOC's face superimposed over someone who's getting murdered by being clubbed over the back of the neck. So let's take Giancarlo, put up that image. I had to have Giancarlo slow it down. There it is. She put this out on her own tweet. Check out what this is absolutely incredible. Am I right? She writes, this is sick. This is from Ted Lieu.
Ted Lieu. Yeah. She quote tweeted Ted Lieu with the tweet that we had up earlier.
Yes, this is sick behavior from Representative Paul Gosar. He tweeted out the video showing him killing Representative Ocasio-Cortez from both his official account and his personal account. In any workplace in America, if a coworker made an anime video killing another coworker, that person would be fired. But I hope they wouldn't just be fired, but they would also be, arrested or I don't know if there's an arrest to be made, but at least investigated. It's suggestive to the fans. Once you put something in people's minds, then they think about it and then they freaking go do it.
I think what's really disturbing, and this is just sorry, Giancarlo, I'd never seen the video before today. And
Juliana hadn't either. I kind of.
No, he brought it up and I was like, what? We're talking about that other video from Arizona. So
it's really, look, Congressman Lieu says it best. If you had, Juliana, if you put a video on the ActTV page of you murdering me or vice versa,
right,
the person who did that would it's like he said, would get let go so fast.
Right.
And in
not
an
just let go, but like investigated. And
right.
Where are the other Republicans who are denouncing this? And why is it still up on Twitter? This is instigating violence. Why is this still on Twitter? Why is that?
Twitter did hide it. So you can view it. If you go, it says, there is a warning on the video.
Yes, but why is his account not suspended?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
This goes back to a lot of things we've been dealing with where both, Facebook, Twitter, all these social mediums are censoring, we have a bunch of progressive leading pages and we'll get censored over the most banal, ridiculous things. Like you'll share a meme that's clearly a joke and you'll get flagged. Like, oh, this is
we got flagged on YouTube for breaking down something that someone else said about January 6th. Yeah. So that, in addition to that, it's just the difference between what we're mad at the left about, or the Democrats about, I don't want to say the left because there's a big difference, and what we're mad at the Republicans about is the chasm. They are inciting violence toward immigrants and our elected officials.
I think it's really important that we, look, we're women. I think it's really important that the violence against Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, it has a very specific, disturbing, frequently sexually violent tone to it because she is a young, attractive woman of color. And it's incredibly disgusting, the malevolence that's pointed at her individually. When, there are tons of progressive members of Congress. I don't see them making videos like this about Congressman Mark Pocan or,
right.
Seriously.
Exactly.
And AOC has become the target of this white supremacist vitriol, and it is emblematic of a long trend against women of color for simultaneously sexualizing and, inciting violence. And it's nothing new, but it's incredibly disturbing to watch play out in what should be the highest legislating body of the land.
Back to our last segment. In our last segment, we talked about the headline segment. So if you're watching on YouTube, go back a segment. You'll see. We talked about how society is becoming more and more anxiety provoking, very frightening. And this kind of rhetoric, this kind of imaging from an elected official, I could see some Q nut putting it up and being like, and then kind of getting in trouble for that being on there. But this is coming from an elected official with the elected official's permission, without any denunciation from the rest of the party. They're basically tacitly approving this is okay. Remember when comedian Kathy Griffin, got basically her career was destroyed by people on the right, but also people on the left who said she had gone too far. There were Democrats who said she had gone too far when she put up and held up. She made she held up like a Trump mask, the bloodied Trump mask, something similar to this, but she is a comedian, not an elected official whose words, no one's going to take Kathy Griffin, star of My Life on the C List or whatever it is, who does comedy for a living, serious to start like an insurrection against an elected official. She could also have been arrested if she was trying to start an insurrection. She was making a joke. But when this guy, of course he's going to say, mark my words, he's going to say, oh, it was just a joke. That, that's what narcissists always say. They say.
So Juliana, there's a little update on the story. Nancy Pelosi has called for an investigation by the House of Ethics Committee and law enforcement on Tuesday relating to the video. She asked House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to support the move. Quote, threats of violence against members of Congress and the President of the United States must not be tolerated, Pelosi said.
And did Kevin McCarthy get back to, did anybody, it's like also with this crazy stuff, it's like they're wasting our time. Now Pelosi's got to put out a statement. She's got, her staff is busy working on stuff we may or may not think is progressive enough, but at least, it's just like, I hope they do an investigation, but an investigation is not enough. We need like stronger words. We need condemnation. We need the party itself to condemn this horrendous behavior. And it's not just the AOC part. It's the blood over the immigrants part. Am I right?
It's oh, sorry, John.
No, go ahead.
Carl, I don't care if you're wearing pajamas.
A little context for people that might not be familiar with the show or anything. Like there's a lot of, kind of white nationalist propaganda and imagery that really like permeates the show. It's a lot of discourse all the time about it, and like what do a lot of like the symbolic parts of the show mean. So it's like it's pretty adequate for a Republican and not surprising at all that they kind of go this route with a show that has been like in constant, like the glorification of the military, very anti-immigration. They people are put literally behind walls that separate them from other parts of society. So it's not surprising at all. And then all the politicians weighing in. Chuck Schumer said that this was absolutely disgusting by a small person.
That's even more disturbing because Giancarlo, because this clip just went onto Twitter. But as you said, behind the scenes, like progressives aren't watching this stuff. This is going on over and over. And this is basically, I hesitate to say this, but it's mass brainwashing. It's mass mind control. It's changing what is allowable and for an allowable discourse in our society. And it's just contributing to misogyny. It's contributing to hate. It's contributing to what I foresee as more attacks on immigrants, people of color, women, marginalized communities, progressives, academics. We've seen this happen before in history, and I don't think we should be taking it at all lightly.
The radicalization of young people as well. Like, you use things that they're familiar with, right? Video games, shows that they like, right? And that's how you radicalize, these people on 4chan and these young people, all these, Gamergate, all that stuff that goes back. I mean, that's how you get them, right? And then that's how you radicalize, younger generations of people.
You said it. We're talking to Giancarlo. Giancarlo is our producer. He also has his own podcast. Giancarlo, what's your podcast called? Yeah, of course.
I do things we do things with Miami Heat Beat. I'm the editor, co-founder, producer, writer, reporter. Miami Heat Beat. We're on Twitch a lot. We do daily streams on twitch.tv/Miami Heat Beat, on Twitter @MIA Heat Beat. So we do tons of stuff with the NBA, with the Miami Heat. A lot of fun things tonight with everything that happened with Nikola Jokic and Markieff Morris. If anybody saw the news on that. So we have tons of fun stuff streamed tonight, 7:30 on our Twitch page.
We've put Giancarlo on the beat of being young and and knowing things about sports.
I'm almost 30, Juliana. Listen, I'm over the hump. It's over for me.
No, not yet. 30's the new 20. Oh man. Yeah, 30's the new 20 since we all have to live at home with our parents because there's the economy's in shit. Hey, Giancarlo, thanks for help producing today. We did have, and I think I might have put out there, but we did have booked a climate and national security expert. But guess what? Right at the very last second, he got called to talk to like some British MPs. And that seems, very important. So I didn't give him any shit about it, but he's coming on tomorrow to discuss with us. It's author and scholar Anatol Levin. He is the author of Climate Change and the Nation State and a senior fellow at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. I love those people. Joe Cirencione is a regular here, and he's the one who hooked me up with this guy so we can have him on. These are the questions I have for him. This is what I'm going to ask him tomorrow. What is the U.S. national security apparatus planning on doing now that, cascading ecological disasters are becoming more and more of concern as a national security issue? Is the U.S.'s aim to mitigate and correct the disaster? Or are we going to try to use the military to wage a war against climate change and just try to fight our way out of things like, hordes of people trying to migrate north or south or whatever happens. Anyway, it should be an interesting show, if not completely depressing, but we're starting to move our way into dystopia here on actNOW. I don't know why. Maybe it's just where I am right now, but it's great to have JOCELYN on here with me regularly. And I'm so glad you could put your whole time in today because it's terrific. It was terrific to have you.
It was lovely to be on here with you guys. And hopefully, so we'll be chatting again next Tuesday. We will have updates, not just on the BIF, but on all of it.
What's coming up on Solidarity Live this week? Your other
well, we actually will not be present because it is Alex's 10-year anniversary of We Act Radio.
Oh,
which is exciting.
Is there a party? I'll be down there.
It is Thursday night. Are you around?
I could be. I have to sleep.
Perfect. I will forward you the invitation.
Oh my God, that would be so fun. All right, I'll talk to you later. JOCELYN McCurdy Keats. JOCELYN, where can the folks follow you to get? Okay, you have to follow JOCELYN on Facebook. First of all, she's I told her she is writing a book with her posts.
Yes, the anti-dating book.
No, it's like dating under late stage capitalism and crumbling patriarchy, hopefully.
Exactly. Again,
right?
We're hoping it's crumbling. That anime video has me asking questions. Well, awesome. I will see you guys next Tuesday, right?
I will see you next Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us, JOCELYN. It's great to have you here. You're watching actTV. I'm Julianna Forlano. That was fun. Many thanks to everyone who put time and effort into making this show possible. And thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. Tell your friends because, they might like it. All right. We are dark on this Thursday because I'm traveling for this show. And we'll be back on next Tuesday where you can see that depressing interview. No, I mean, maybe it's hopeful. Maybe it's hopeful interview with our national security expert. We also have Dean Baker coming on next week to talk about the economic impact that Biden's new bill will have. Will there be inflation? Should we be scared? Should I be buying Bitcoin? He will tell us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.